My name's Alex Rodriguez, reminding you don't need a contract, you need a team of pros.
Hey everybody, Alex with Bay Cities Construction. Welcome to another week of our show, our construction and real estate show. Today we're talking about ADUs, Auxiliary Dwelling Units, and what that means for you. So stay tuned, we got a great show, a lot of informative stuff, and you may be able to learn how you can make a little bit more money off your property. Stay tuned.
My name's Alex Rodriguez, reminding you don't need a contract, you need a team of pros.
Hey folks, welcome back. Alex Rodriguez with Bay Cities Construction, and today we're talking about ADUs, Auxiliary Dwelling Units. It is a law that passed last year, and it's starting to have an impact, and your property may be impacted by it. You may be able to benefit from this new law. It's amazing that Sacramento would have passed a law that's beneficial to its citizens, but this law may have been one of the first in the last 20 years. So let's talk a little bit about what ADUs are, what are the laws specifically that are impacting the development of this, and who can do it, who can build an ADU, what are the restrictions, parking considerations, all of these things. So that's what we're covering tonight. And please, like always, share our stream. The first 5 get a goodie from us. You share some love, we give you love back. I still have, we've given quite a few of these away. So I've got a few Home Depots, I've got Pete's Coffee and Starbucks. So got some cool giveaways. If you want some Bay Cities gear, please also post and share, and we'll set you up with a t-shirt or a baseball cap. So let's get started. Let's go picture in picture here so we can see what we got going on. So the 2 main laws that impacted or really have allowed the development of ADUs here in California are AB 2299 and SB 1069. Let's talk a little bit about what an ADU is, or what these laws will allow. There's Jerry Brown signing some bills, and these laws took effect January 2017, and it's taken quite a bit of time in order for the local municipalities to write and adjust their laws. Many of the municipalities have very restrictive rules for certain single-family residential zoned areas where they outlawed this. You know, historically, these things are called, the ADUs are also called like mother-in-law units, or like the granny flats, stuff like that. So it's not a new concept, but there was a time where the trend was to restrict these units, the building of these units, and for many, many years, it was basically, if your house was zoned single-family residence, there's no way you were getting a second unit in. It was limited to the R2, R3, and R4 zonings. And those zonings mean different things in different cities, but basically you're either historically, you've either been a single family residence or a multi-family neighborhood. So you can have apartments, duplexes, triplexes, high density housing, all that stuff. So this law is very specific about impacting single family residence, zoned single family residence, okay? So it allows for a small unit to be built, and it supersedes all of the restrictions that the cities have put up over the years. So all of these cities that have very restrictive building ordinances for zoning now have to accommodate the city law. The California state statute, AB 2299 and SB 1069. So let's kind of just a very, without getting onto the legal Z stuff. This law basically is going to allow, most likely in your neighborhood, in a single family residence, is going to allow you as the homeowner to build a unit, an additional unit. In some cases, it could be a 2 bedroom, it could be a 1 bedroom, or it could be a studio. In some cases, you can actually convert the garage without knocking it down or building a new garage. You can actually convert the garage into a living unit, put a kitchen, put a bathroom, things that you could never do before. This law will allow you to do for the sake of getting an ADU passed. And really, there's a few reasons why they did this, and we're going to talk about it a little bit. So there are some restrictions and there are some guidelines. The cities will implement their own specific guidelines for how these things are going to be built. Don't be surprised if your city hasn't done it yet. City of LA is normally more commonly, as crazy as this may sound, it's the leader of all the building and safety departments in implementing new policies and new codes and stuff like that. So other cities go and mimic and mirror what the city of Los Angeles is doing. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. So you may be asking, like, hey, why did Jerry Brown and the rest of the California legislature pass this law? And there's probably a half a dozen reasons. We'll talk about a few of them here. The main one is that during the Great Recession, there was practically no construction for 5 years of new housing, right? It could have been, some people argue there's no significant construction that happened for about 8 to 10 years. So now that the economy is good, there's a very significant threat. Some people even call it a crisis. I don't know if we would call it a crisis, but the historic levels of new housing starts is out of whack because of the Great Recession, because of the lack of financing for new housing, and so that has caused prices to dramatically inflate. Right? If you live in a downtown apartment now, downtown LA, you would know that the rents are crazy, and there's tons and tons of buildings going up, and many economists predict that it's not enough. So this isn't just LA, it's statewide, but there's a couple of really cool benefits that this law will allow, right? And one of them is that it'll allow somebody to live in a historically very high rent area for below market rents. And it's not done because of government regulation. This is not rent control or anything like that. Basically, these little mother-in-law or granny flats, you have to share a yard. There's a little bit of kind of, you don't have a totally separate entrance. You're basically living in somebody's back house, right? So those rental units are in high demand, but typically they would get less rent than a comparably sized 1-bedroom apartment or studio apartment because of the dynamic of how the access to it. So it is a really cool way for California to develop, for lack of a better word, lower cost, low income housing without any subsidies from the government, right? Like, I think the incentive in many people, for many homeowners, is that they are going to increase the value of their property because their property now produces some income as opposed to it just coming out of pocket for them. The state's long-term trajectory for meeting housing is way below the levels that they'd like it to be. So the government planners feel that this could have a potential, that the lack of affordable housing in the future could have a negative economic effect or impact on the state. So this dynamic, increasing the housing in California, is a major goal of the government. So let's talk about some of the positive impacts of the law, right? So the law supersedes the local ordinances. So basically, if your neighborhood was historically restricted, and they wouldn't let you do another unit because you weren't in a multifamily zoning, this law changes that. Okay, makes an ADU possible in areas that it wasn't possible before. Homeowners can benefit from the added income. Homeowners can use the building as housing for in-home healthcare providers, local students, family members. I mean, you can rent it to whomever you want. It does have to be used for, residents. But it's a trip to see from a contractor's perspective. For me, it's a trip to see such a 180 reversal, right? Like historically in code enforcement in the city of LA particularly would go in and like write all these corrections for people that were jammed in, 2 or 3 different families jammed into a house that was cut up into different sections. So it's a trip to see this turnaround. I think it's a positive thing. I think another impact is the economic stimulus. Like this is one of the few times where a law creates economic stimulus without having one party lose out on the deal. Like normally, I'll give you an example. LED lighting or the conversion to fluorescent bulbs. You didn't get a benefit other than maybe a little bit lower energy consumption, but you didn't get an actual benefit for adopting or for complying with the law, right? Typically the laws just add cost to everything, to doing business, to your private life, to your private endeavors. So this actually creates a condition where if the homeowner so chose to, could invest, take on a loan and put in some money into the property and build out a unit that would add value to their building, or to their house, and it would add a revenue stream. So, man, I don't know, like, right on. I think that's a cool thing. So, let's talk about some other impacts. Plan check fees. This law allows this, and in many cases encourages the local building and safety departments to lower the plan check fees. They shouldn't cost the same amount as the plan check fees for a single family house. Like if you were to build a single family house, you're not going to have the same onerous requirements in fees that you would if you were building the house. And then now, so like I said before, the big kicker is like zoning requirements can no longer be used to deny the building of an ADU. That's huge. I mean, that changed the whole deal. Another big impact of the law was how we view, how parking is viewed by the city. Historically, you had to have covered parking, and you had to replace garages with covered parking and all of this stuff. Like now, from my several meetings with city officials on this, because we're working on 2 different projects right now. We're building ADUs. We're designing ADUs. City officials basically say we have to call out on the map a parking spot, which is a 15 by 30 spot in size. So you can park a car there. You can park them in tandem. You can park them on the driveway in tandem. You can park them on the driveway next to each other. So as long as it's off-street parking, it's cool. But they did even one better one than that. So if you are actually losing a space because of the ADU, you can mitigate off-street parking if the building, the ADU, is within 1/2 mile of a bus stop. If it's within 1/2 mile of a bus stop, then you don't have to provide that parking space. And here's the big one, like the one that shocked me is that garages can be converted to an ADU. That means you can literally run water and power, put a little kitchenette, put a toilet, a sink, and a stand-up shower, and the garage is completely legal, okay? And you can rent it out, make some money, keep it, whatever. So historically, all these really badly converted garages in LA can now be brought up to code I mean, that's really cool. That's really cool. So let's talk about like what an ADU actually is, what it looks like, what are the characteristics of it. Okay, it's a granny flat. It could be an attached or a detached structure. There's some minimum square foot guidelines. The city of Torrance, I believe, has a 450 square foot minimum, and there is a maximum limitation. You can either go up to 50% of the main house's square footage, you go to 50% of that, or 1,200 square feet, or 1,200 square feet. That's your kind of your big limitation or your guidelines. And then like the city of Torrance has got like different square footage per, like if you wanted to add a studio, it'd be 450 square feet. A one bedroom, I think it's 550, maybe 600 square feet. And if you want to do a two bedroom deal, it's got to be 750 plus square feet, up to about 1,200. That's the max. So the buildings can be separated in the backyard. They can be detached or attached. That's not so much a problem. The crazy part that I learned is like, okay, like look at this picture. You see how this building is pretty close against the wall? If you have a garage that doesn't meet the current setback requirements, the conversion of the garage to an ADU does not trigger that setback requirement. So without getting all too technical, what that basically means is historically, if I wanted to build something, it had to build a new structure, it had to meet the existing code requirements. So let's say you had 5 feet from here to the property wall, you had to do that in the new building. What we're saying here is, if this was the old garage, and let's say the window here represents one entrance to the garage, and this other side here represents a second entrance, you could leave the structure in place and put the wall in, put the windows in, and put a doorway in, and convert that garage into a living dwelling without meeting this requirement. That's a big thing, because now you're talking about converting a garage that's about 450 square feet, maybe adding a little bit of square footage to it, which would, I would say 90% of the time, the little addition to the garage. If you're converting a garage into a ADU, all you would need to do is add a little bit of square footage for the kitchen and for the bathroom, and you can have the main garage area as the main living area. Okay, really cool stuff there. You got to do some stuff, get the floor up and figure out a way to close the main garage door up. But in terms of cost, it makes it feasible. You can convert, you can probably convert a 2-car garage into an ADU for like $120,000, maybe $150,000 by adding a kitchen and stuff like that. So it makes a project that would be kind of not feasible into something that could be feasible. So, and we're just talking rough numbers here, so that you know. So another really kind of cool advantage is if you're an empty nester, or you want the 2 ADUs that I'm doing, it's basically for the homeowner wants to have his father come in from out of state and live back there, and I think the other one is a very similar situation where the father wants to move in to the ADU. His daughter already lives on the property and he wants to move in. It's his house. But anyway, long story short, it's a cool deal to keep the families a little bit closer together. It's neat. So who can build an ADU? ADUs are for single family residence areas, okay? If you have the space in your backyard, if you have a garage that it makes sense to convert it, you may have a good candidate property to do this. You don't have to have a huge, tremendous lot, but you do have to have some space to be able to gain access, and I also have to be able to have enough room to connect your new sewer lines to the existing. So that's the tricky part about the whole thing. I think a lot of these, we're having to do a new sewer line and connect it outside of the house because the existing sewer lines are right in the middle of the primary structure. So mechanically speaking, there's some stuff to finagle around, but it's definitely doable. You can convert, like I said, existing garage structures, or you can build new ones. It's pretty open. I mean, it really makes it doable. You do have to take into consideration the parking spaces, but you no longer have to build a covered garage or a covered carport or a garage. So you could even lose some parking if you're within a half a mile of a bus stop. So this diagram here kind of talks about, kind of depicts some of the ways that the ADU would be built on the property, and it's kind of an easy way to kind of get your head around how that is going to take place. So these are a few different sample illustrations of whether it's detached or attached. It's funny, like you know, pre-1940s, this was a common situation, and then we went away from it, and now we're back. So that's kind of cool. So by the way, if you guys want a download of the slides, send Brian an email or a message through the Facebook Messenger, or heck, print them out, send him a question right online, and he'll make sure you get a copy of it. Okay, so attached units, detached units. Most people, I think, would prefer to have it detached. So most of the garages down here in Torrance and certain sections of Redondo Beach have a detached garage at the rear of the property. Makes it really easy to do. Let's check that out. In some cases, you can actually add to the garage, which is what I was saying earlier. You can actually add like a kitchen and a little bathroom to the section of the garage. That makes it a lot easier. In other cases, we're adding a second floor to the garage with stairs at the exterior perimeter wall of the garage. So something similar to this. So in many cases, you can build on top of the garage, and this could be the access to the ADU. So it really is going to be dependent on your lot, and if you have power lines that roll over you and that kind of stuff. There are some restrictions. Hillsides always have a little bit more restrictions. The other restriction is that you can't have an ADU between the main house and the street, although I think that there is a little bit of flexibility to that. So all things said, there is a process for presenting your ADU proposal to the city, and we'll go over that in a few minutes here. So ADUs, they're allowed in single-family residence areas only, and they're limited to one per lot. Although and that's in the city of LA, some areas are allowing you to put 2 ADUs. So it's city. That part of it is city specific. The ADU. So from what I read in the law. So check this out. This is kind of an interesting little data point. 150 square feet is the minimum for a efficiency unit. Okay. In this case, the law allows for pre-manufactured homes. So what you see here is a little tiny home. See how it's on a trailer? The law allows for that. How you're going to get the trailer there is, some of these South Bay deals. It's going to be a tough pitch, but
Crane.
yeah, maybe craning it, or you could bring it in pieces, I suppose. Assemble it on site. Now the ADU requirements, like I said before, the maximum size is either 1,200 square feet or 50% of the primary residence. So you cap off at either one of those. Parking consideration. So this has been the biggest tool that cities used to prevent the building of ADUs historically. Okay, it's the parking requirements. This law clears that up. So now the threshold is, can you get the car parked on the property, off the street? It doesn't have to be carported, it doesn't have to be garaged anymore. So, interesting deal. If you're gonna lose parking spaces, you would want to be within a half a mile of public transportation, and then you would be given the blessing to actually lose parking spaces, part of your ADU development. ADUs, no parking is needed. Yeah, if you're in an architecturally or historically significant district, you may get a waiver for that also for parking. City of LA is going to give you, if you're in a permitted parking area, you'll be able to get that. Although you're not guaranteed that, but I'm assuming they're gonna make that happen. All right. So how do you get started with the process of the plans? Actually, before we get into this, do we have any questions? Did anybody post any questions? Okay. So let's get started with what's the process? What does it take to take, actually, Brian's right, we should take a break. We'll take a break. When we get back, we'll talk about how to start the process for getting plans approved and getting the city to give you some feedback on your proposed project. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Kitchen you want today from Bay Cities Construction in the Southern California and Los Angeles area. There is no better company who takes time out of the equation to get you a detailed plan of what your new kitchen will look like. Get your design plans done, your interior design plans done, and entire project scope done right now. Get your finished kitchen in 90 days or less. We are the best in the Los Angeles and Southern California area, and there's no need to shop anywhere else. Just get started with Bay Cities Construction. Go to baycitiesconstruction.com. That's baycitiesconstruction.com. Looking for a bathroom remodel in the Southern California and Los Angeles area? If you've shopped and you've looked at prices and have no clue where to start, let Bay Cities Construction get you started with a quote of get design, interior design, project scope, and know exactly what it will cost to get your bathroom remodeled. There is no guesswork and no need to shop around. Just take time out of the equation to get your new bathroom in 90 days. Get your estimate now at baycitiesconstruction.com. That's baycitiesconstruction.com.
Hey folks, Alex Rodriguez here. We're back. We're going to talk about what the process is for presenting some plans to the city where you live and pitching them an ADU behind your house. So one of the first things that I ask for when someone has some questions about a particular project before they come to see me is take some pictures and send them to us, okay? We're gonna eventually, if you decide to move forward with the project, we'll have to pitch your proposed ADU to the city, and there's gonna be some very specific things that we need. We don't need a full set of plans, but we need a couple of different plans. Okay, we're gonna need a site plan. A site plan basically illustrates where the building is in relation to the property lines, okay, as it is existing, and then a proposed ADU plan. So where the ADU is going to be, and then what the floor plan for the ADU will be. Okay, we don't need any engineering at this point. We don't need any elevations of the side of the building. We basically need where things are going to sit. Okay, and maybe some heights if you're going to go two-story. If you're going to build above your existing garage, we will need to know what the maximum heights are. So there's basically a set of plans that I will need to have drawn up for you on your behalf. And it's going to be the site plan and the proposed ADU location and floor plan. So those two things will have enough information that I could go to the city and pitch your project to them. And they're relatively inexpensive to get drawn up. So once you have the city approvals, once the city gives us some feedback on what the configuration would be for the proposed project, then we can send those plans out to engineering and further develop them, get side elevations that depict windows and all of that stuff, and figure out how we're going to tie into your existing sewer and electrical connections. All of those things are first, but I broke it down into something very simple, like first, can we get an ADU built there? And then what are the roadblocks that the city's going to put forth to us? I want to know that up front. So once you know you can build it, engineering will be done. We can get you a quote once engineering is complete. So I know what the actual engineering requirements are going to be. We'll have dimensions, and then once we have dimensions and size and dimension, I can put together a quote. And once we get the money part squared away, then we can start building. So it's a pretty easy process. Just to recap, we got to put together a site plan, a proposed ADU, location, and floor plan for the ADU. Pitch it to the city. If they're good with it, we'll put the whole set of plans together and then formally submit it to the city and get started with construction once the city approves it. So pretty straightforward. There are a lot of, since this is new, it's going to be a process that I think will take a little bit longer than most of the other proposed projects, but it is definitely something that you can take advantage of if you've been thinking about it. If you have some questions, by all means, send them over. And at this time, this is the part of the presentation where we take questions from our viewers. So do we have any questions, Brian?
We do have some questions. Somebody asks, one of our viewers is asking, what is the difference between an ADU and a guest house?
Well, there are very similarities. Guest houses is what you used to call it, before this law came into place. But I think it's the current ADUs will have a very specific characteristics that they'll require, like a minimum square footage, kitchens, bathrooms, stuff like that. Kitchen, bathroom. And then there's in the city of Torrance, there's a minimum requirement if you want to have a one bedroom. So the ADU will be very specific now on what you can build and how big that can be.
Another question that we have, can I build an ADU on top of my existing garage?
Yes, you can. Pending that you don't have any problems with, if you're not in the Edison easement, if there is a power line that goes over your building that when you put the second story on, it'll be too close. That could be a problem. But as the current law is written and interpreted by the municipalities, yes, you could build a second story on your garage.
Another question from one of our viewers is, must I, the homeowner, live on the property?
Okay, so some cities are a little bit more restrictive than others. I think they want you to be one of them, but I don't think that there's a deed restriction for that. So potentially you can build one and move out, build your ADU and eventually move out. People do that all the time. So I think you're okay with that. I don't think you're required to live in the ADU or in the front of the house for that matter.
Another question from another one of our viewers, Eric, asks, what if I already have a dwelling on my property but are not recognized by the city?
Oh, like you mean you have an illegal unit? You can probably convert it legally now, and it could be like legit, and you could rent it out without fearing that you're gonna get in trouble with the city.
Another question from one of our viewers is, can I sell my ADU?
Separate? No. So the ADU is part of the house. You can't subdivide the lot. The ADU is part of the deal. It won't have a separate APN number. It'll get a separate address in some cases, but not a separate APN number.
Another question that we have is, what if my current garage is in front of my lot?
Okay, in some areas, I think in some of the areas in LA, if you can't build the ADU between the house and the street in some cases. So that isn't always the case. That's why it's important to put together a plan and pitch it to the city. The city of LA has very drastically different curb appeal or curb to the front door configurations. So you may be able to get it, even though some of the ordinance says you can't. I think a lot of it is still open for interpretation. You just got to put together a good case for your project.
Another question that we have from one of our viewers on Facebook says, my town has not adopted a local ordinance. Does that mean I can't build?
If they haven't, I think that the understanding is that they will go de facto to whatever LA Building and Safety has put forward. So LA Building and Safety already has guidelines. They have a methodology for processing the applications. So for the cities that don't have that kind of manpower to be able to do their own ordinances, they're adopting and respecting the LA Building Safety Protocol.
Another question is there a restriction in the amount of rooms I can add to my ADU?
Yeah, there's brackets of square footage to bedroom relationship. So, like in Torrance, the minimum for a one bedroom, for a studio ADU is 450 square feet. For a two bedroom, I think it was 750 square feet. So there'll be a relationship between square footage and number of bedrooms.
Another question that we have for one of our viewers is covered parking required?
Nope, covered parking. Covered, like I said, parking used to be the biggest tool that cities had to kill off ADUs. Now, not so much the case. No, you don't need to have you don't need to have covered parking. You just need to be able to, on the site plan, indicate where a car can be parked. That's off the street, and that'll count as a parking space. Doesn't have to be covered.
Another question for one of our viewers is, once you get plans for your ADU, do you need an interior designer for your kitchen and your bathroom?
No, you don't need one by the city, but it's probably a good idea. It's probably a good idea for you to pick out everything that's going to go inside of the place so you can get a good, solid price without having any allowances from your contractor. You probably want to specify everything that's going into the project so that when you get a quote, it's a real number based on what's actually going to get built, based on the things that you selected. So you should have your plumbing fixtures picked out, tile, flooring, electrical layout, all that good stuff.
Another question from one of the viewers is asking, is there a separate entrance required for ADUs?
The units can have their own entrance, sure. Yeah, you don't have to go through the house, obviously. You have to have, it would make sense to have a walkway that's, free of any, obstruction, it's safe. But yeah, you can have a separate entrance, no problem.
Another question from one of our viewers, they're asking, can modular or manufactured homes be considered an ADU?
Yes, that was crazy. I couldn't believe that. That's in the ordinance. You can totally have a manufactured house there. Like those little tiny homes that you see people build. According to the ordinance, you can roll in one of those babies or crane it in or however the heck you're going to get into that backyard, tag it up, tie it up to the existing sewer line and fresh water lines, and you're good to go.
Another question from one of our viewers is, I'm considering building an ADU on my property, but is there rent control involved for my ADU?
If you're in the city of LA, you'd be under rent control. If you're in the city of LA, eventually, right? It would take a while for the rents to be, you're going to get current market rent. You're going to get whatever renter is going to be willing to pay for the unit at this time, and then you'll be mandated by LA City regulation for how you can increase the rents. But look, I'm not an attorney on that, so if there's somebody who's an LA City attorney that deals with rent control, I'd love to hear your feedback and your comments about that particular question.
Another question from our viewer Eric is asking, when did this law come into play? When did it take effect?
So 2017 January, but really the impact I think is occurring this year, just because I think the cities took quite a bit of time to figure out what it meant and what protocol they were gonna put in place and how they're gonna implement it. So the recent activity and questions, at least in our offices, our calls and stuff have just started really this quarter. A little bit at the end of last year, but I think maybe more people are becoming aware of it now. So that's why we're seeing more questions in the marketplace, and that's why we did the show, because so many people were asking about it.
Another question that we have from one of our viewers is it cheaper to build an attached unit or an unattached unit?
Oh, I don't know that it's cheaper or more expensive. If you could convert the existing unit, like the existing garage, that would probably be cheaper if that's possible, as opposed to knocking it down and building it back up again. You save the cost of the walls and the roof, and that could be quite a bit of money.
Yeah, we have another question from one of our viewers. Is how do utilities work when you build a new ADU?
So you're going to tap into the same. You won't get a separate meter or anything like that. It's going to tap into your existing stuff. You're not going to have separate bills, stuff like that. It'll be one bill. At least that's my understanding in the city of LA. It could be different in some of the other cities, but my understanding is that you're not going to be required to put another gas meter or another water meter, those types of things. The law's intended to bring the cost of this down and make it financially feasible to occur. So they're trying to bring down the hurdles, right? So you don't have to get a separate utility for water and electricity. It's kind of cool.
Another question from one of our viewers is, my home is 1,000 feet. Are there any size restrictions for my ADU?
Yeah, it's either 50% of the size of your house or 1,200 square feet. And to be honest with you, I don't know if it's the smaller of the two, the requirement. I don't know that. But I know those are the guidelines.
Another question from one of our other viewers is, how much does a moderately sized ADU cost to build?
I think you should be prepared to spend somewhere between $100,000 and $250,000, depending on how big it is, where it is, and what it's going to house. Because some of you may think, oh, $200,000, that's a lot of money. Well, some of the people are building like a 2-car garage or a 4-car garage, and then they're building the ADU on top of that. So it really is going to depend on how big the building is and how difficult it is to connect to the existing utility. In some cities, like the city of Torrance, where mandatory undergrounding of electrical drops from the pole, those things could play a big role in the overall price. So I think if you're asking me just kind of some general numbers, I think it'll probably be a little over 100,000, a little bit under 200,000 as a range.
Another question for one of our viewers is, my lot is oddly shaped. Can I still build an ADU on my lot?
You very well may. It's hard to tell. I mean, I have to see the dimensions and stuff, but they're trying to make it happen. So you got to make a case for it. You got to make a case for why this is going to be a good setup for the neighborhood.
Another one of our viewers is asking, you talked about modular and manufactured homes. Would an RV be considered an ADU?
I don't think so. I think it was, you mean like maybe like a trailer? I don't know if that's what you mean, but I think it's gotta be if it's a manufactured house, like some of those tiny homes, they have a designation of a manufactured house. It isn't just like an RV. So it's got to be a little bit more than that.
Another question from one of our viewers is, can cities add or impose certain restrictions on ADUs?
Yes, the cities can impose some additional restrictions. They're not supposed to be additional restrictions. They're supposed to be the guidelines. They can certainly, I mean, it's within the city limits. They can definitely put their guidelines, but the guidelines should not be more burdensome than the minimum requirements set forth by the state law. That's my understanding of the deal. What else we got? Hey folks, if you guys are considering doing an ADU and you want to get started on the process, send me your pictures, alex@baycitiesconstruction.com. There's no charge for that. I'd love to have a conversation with you. It's always easier for me to answer your questions if I have your pictures. So you can send me an email, put in your address, put in your contact info, send me maybe, I don't know, 4, 10, 12 pictures on there. And I'll scroll through them. We'll have a little conversation. If you feel like this is something that you want to explore further, we can have a meeting here at my office, talk about it some more. If it's something that you're really serious about, we can put together an architectural and design agreement to come up with the floor plan, to come up with a site plan, a proposed floor plan and ADU location, and I can present it to the city. We're charging $2,500 for that service. If it turns out that the city will allow you to build that unit very close in design to what we came up with, then we'll put together a design agreement that'll include architectural and engineering. But the $2,500 is a great way to start the conversation with the city and determine if an ADU will be permitted on your property. So this is a totally new service for us as far as like a condensed, call it like an exploratory service, right? We're trying to see if we can make it happen. A lot of the cities are new to this, so there's a lot of, look, you can definitely go down to the city and ask a lot of questions, but unless a plan checker has a set of drawings to look at, you're going to get very inconsistent information from one plan checker to the next. Okay, you want to have a set of plans, pitch what you want to build, and see if they'll let it happen. If you're only out $2,500 and it turns out that there's some weird thing you can't do it, then you're only out $2,500. You're not out $10,000-$12,000 and a full set of plans that you can't use. So I think it's a smart way to approach the ADU. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, another question from one of our viewers is, how long does it usually take to build an ADU from start to finish?
Probably about 3.5, 4 months. Could be 5 months, depending on how complicated access is to your property. And I'll be honest with you folks, the toughest thing about this is to tie into the existing utilities. You're going to have a series of trenches that we'll use to run new sewer lines and run new power and those types of things. So that plays a big role in how long it takes to build out. We got time, I think, maybe for a couple more questions. We've got to wrap it up.
Yeah, another question from one of our viewers is there a restriction to when you must commence construction? Do you have to get it done between a certain amount of time?
I think most cities allow you a year within the plans getting approved. Some cities are even 2 years with you can pay like a little small fee and they'll give you add time basically to being able to build out. But I would say most cities you have to start construction within a year of being approved.
Another question from one of our viewers is, do you need any special permits when it comes time to build an ADU?
Absolutely. You'll need a full set of permits. You're going to need architectural engineering, and you're going to get a building permit. You're going to get electrical, HVAC, plumbing. You need a full set of permits.
One of our viewers wants to know, how can I check if my area is zoned for an ADU construction?
All you need to be is single family residence. That's it. Single family residence. You can get an ADU. The next question is, where on the lot is it going to be, and those types of things. But zoning wise, it's just single family residence.
Another question from one of our viewers says, I'm close to a Metrolink station, but there aren't any bus lines near my home. Do I need to make space for a parking space?
Nope, that's public transportation. Bus stop is commonly occurrence within a half a mile. I think that's why they wrote it like that. I mean, just about everything's within a half a mile range, but all you need is public transportation within a half a mile.
Another question is, are there any height restrictions? Can I make my ADU 2 stories?
You can make your ADU 2 stories. The cities will propose a height restriction. There may be a height restriction. Torrance, I think, is 15 or 16 feet. There's areas that are on hillsides that have a height restriction. So, yes, height restrictions may apply.
Another question. If my ADU is going to be a rental, do I need fire sprinklers for my unit?
Only if the main house has fire sprinklers. So if your primary residence has fire sprinklers, the ADU may require that too.
Another question from our viewers, they're asking, do I have to rent out my ADU? Does it have to be a rental property?
Nope, it doesn't have to be a rental property. You can have it. You can have it in the back for whatever reasons. Garden house. Your wife gets upset at you. Stuff like that. So, folks, thanks very much for your questions. Thanks for sharing the stream. If you haven't done so, please share the stream. For the first 5 people, I always got a little bit of love. When you give some love, we give some love. If you need any help with any construction services, you want to learn more, please visit us at baycitiesconstruction.com. We have blog articles. We've got a tremendous amount of information about residential remodeling. I think we're close to 400 articles on remodeling your house. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the guy on the right here with clear glasses. My name's Alex with Bay Cities Construction. I've been in business for 15 years. We will provide you with a full service turnkey operation. We'll do the interior design for you. We'll do architectural and engineering for you. We'll represent you with the city, and we'll project manage and build out your place. I'm a licensed contractor for here in California. Been so for a long time. I have a tremendous amount of information that you can put to work for your benefit. So please contact our office. Don't forget to subscribe so that you get notified every week. We have a Facebook Live show here at 5:30 on Tuesdays. Don't miss another episode. Please share us. If you have any questions for me, give me a call here at the office number. If you want a download of the slides, please send Brian a quick message, and he'll make sure that you get that. If you want to know what people are talking about us, what people are saying about us, go to Yelp, House, Google, or even Facebook. My name's Alex with Bay Cities Construction, reminding you, you don't need a contractor, you need a team of pros.
Hey YouTubers! Did you get a notice to comply from the city of Santa Monica or Los Angeles? You're going to need a pair of these. You're going to need some plans. You're going to need architectural, engineering, and city representation. I am providing a turnkey solution for you. For $12,497, I'm going to give you architectural, engineering, and city representation. If you want more information about soft story repair, please visit our website, baycitiesconstruction.com. Follow the link below. And give our offices a call at 888-881-7355. My name is Alex Rodriguez with Bay Cities Construction, reminding you, you don't need a contractor, you need a team of pros.
Hey folks, Alex here, reminding you to take advantage of our special offer, $12,500 for a full set of plans. If you want to get your ADU built, it's going to cost you $12,500, and we'll apply $3,000 towards construction costs. So you pay us $12,500, we'll get the plans, we'll submit it to the city, get your stuff approved, and we will credit you back $3,000 towards your construction costs. If you're scared, you don't know if you want to put the $12,000, you don't know if the city will allow you to do it, remember we can do the exploratory pitch where we will put a site plan together, a proposed floor plan for your ADU. We'll take it to the city, see if we can get it approved. That'll only cost you $2,500. That'll only cost you $2,500, and at least you'll have the peace of mind of knowing that we can move forward with the project, and it's okay to go to architectural and engineering. So folks, please give my offices a call, 888-881-7355. You can also hit the little button below and send me a message. Visit us at baycitiesconstruction.com, type in your info in there, and get in our system, and you can lock in this low rate. This will be expiring. We will not be crediting $3,000 after April 15th towards any construction. So take advantage right now. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and submit. Put in your information, and let's book a free appointment here at my office. We can talk about your project and what it is that you would like to accomplish at your house. Love to talk to you about it. Love to answer your questions for free. You get 1 hour of free consultation here at my office in Torrance. And if you have any other questions, please do not hesitate to send them to Alex at Bay Cities Construction. See you folks next week with another episode of the Construction and Real Estate Show.
My name's Alex Rodriguez, reminding you, you don't need a contract. You need a team of pros.